So we're live?
Yes.
Fantastic. Hello, welcome to the Kensington Municipal Advisory Council meeting. It's Wednesday, May 29th, 2024. My name is Lloyd. My name is Lloyd. To my right, David Peterson. To my immediate left, Adam Levickis. To his left, Ben Mary, and to his left, Ruel. Welcome, everybody. We have an agenda. We have citizens' comments. Does anybody have a citizen's comment that is not related to a specific agenda item for tonight?
Yes, I do.
Okay, rock and roll. What's your citizen's comment?
Hello, my name is Anthony Gatto, and I would like to invite the residents of Kensington to an open forum regarding our public schools and our education system. It's going to be hosted in El Cerrito next Tuesday. So I just wanted to come by and invite y'all. I'll put the link to the event in the chat if anybody wants to come by and talk about the schools. Thank you.
Okay, so where is the meeting being held?
It's going to be at a home in Kensington. I don't want to release the address publicly, but on the link to RSVP, you'll receive the address from there.
And what time?
From 6 to 8 p.m. next Tuesday.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much, and we'll look forward to checking out the link, and hope everybody who's interested will attend.
Perfect. Thank you. Have a great day.
Anybody else? All right, so I have a couple updates. The Willamette, is that how you pronounce it? Yes, I say Willamette all the time, and I know that's incorrect, but the Zero Willamette project, I received notification that it was ready to go forward. So we just prepared notices and put it on the agenda, and then we heard from the applicant who let us know that the application cover page was incorrectly worded, and that was the language that we used to prepare the notices. And they asked for an additional time to correct that, and we did not receive updated information in time for tonight's meeting. The date on that was May the 23rd, and since building a brand new house is essentially a 100-year project that we're being asked to approve, we need to have enough time for the neighbors who are potentially affected to have correct information, to review the plans, and decide what they're going to contribute to the conversation about that. And so therefore, the Willamette project was postponed until the June 26th meeting. I think the 26th is the date. Longtime followers of the channel, 215 Yale was here, and then it was not. That is my last communication from the county on that was April the 15th, and they are still awaiting revised plans, and so there is no date set for the 215 Yale project to be heard. Next thing, anybody have questions or comments about?
I can distribute the notices for Willamette. Do you want me to?
If you would like to,
Did you update it?
It doesn't have updated dates, so there's a date that has to go here and one here.
Okay.
But I'll email it to you.
Okay.
So it's not blocked, so yeah, I know you took the lead on that last time. So the next thing on the agenda would be to review and hopefully approve the meeting notes from April the 24th. Everybody has had an opportunity to review them both tonight in written form, and they were distributed, well, not quite 2 weeks ago by email. So any questions or comments or corrections that will need to be performed before we move forward? Nope. Nope. Okay, so I move that the meeting notes from April the 24th, 2024 be approved.
Second.
Oops, not blocking the scissors. Somebody do it. Somebody tell me.
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, and then I understand do this thing. So it's 4-0, right? Okay. That's that. So we are now basically recalling 24-03011 relating to number 2 Highland Boulevard. The applicant seeks approval of a Kensington Design Review Development Plan to add a new roof deck and a new Juliet balcony, replacing previously demolished roof deck. Public hearing was requested, blah, 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 you can read that yourself. So last time we were here, there was one neighbor who was concerned about impingement on privacy, and their concerns were that from the roof deck that there would be a view into a couple of windows at the back of the house. And so we postponed in hopes that there would be a negotiated compromise. And so we could hear from the applicant first. I think we have some other people from the neighborhood. So what's their status? You don't have to go all the way through the whole thing. I think, well, maybe for Adam's benefit, because it's okay with this.
Sure, yeah. What level of detail should I go into?
Just give us the executive summary, and then if we need to know more information.
Okay. Yeah, so as you mentioned, we're looking to replace our roof deck that we demolished back in 2020 when we renovated the house. We needed to remove it in order to replace the roof underneath it. With the pandemic and everything, we weren't able to replace it immediately. We've deferred it until now. We're able to now afford to replace it and have the time and emotions to deal with the project. So we are not looking to replace the full balcony. We are looking to just put a Juliet balcony on one of them. That would have required a variance, so we didn't want to go down that path just to keep things simple. We have heard from our neighbor that they have concerns with respect to views from the proposed roof deck. And let me just pull it up here. Yeah, so this is what it looked like originally. These are the views. Let's go through it a bit more. Yeah, so this is what it's going to look like. The primary concerns around views are around this area here, as far as I'm aware. Let's see. I can kind of show what it would look like from the proposed roof deck. This was the video we showed originally. So the concerns are, I think, mostly
right there
with respect to that.
The sliding glass, and the windows, and the door.
Yep.
So now you're at the end. Okay.
Yeah, these are just two different shots, the two different spots by which you can see down there. Yeah, so onto this hearing. So where we left off last time, as mentioned, we agreed that we'd go away for the month and try and reach a compromise with our neighbors. We met maybe 2 to 3 weeks ago to meet with our neighbor, and we proposed a height and width for the trellis that we thought would be adequate to block the views into the yard. We put some posts up to kind of gauge the height as well, so it'd be obvious whether we were able to see into their windows or not. The neighbor asked to go on our roof to see the view. We let them. They asked for it to be a foot higher than what we had proposed, and we agreed that seems fine. However, they did ask for it to be a bit wider than we were proposing, and we just couldn't really agree to that. It would have totally blocked our views from our backyard patio, and we just didn't think that we really needed to have it that wide in order to really shield the views to their backyard. While up on the roof, I think the neighbor also observed a view through our maple tree that they thought maybe a wider trellis would address, but I'll let them speak to whether that's true or not. And ultimately, we couldn't really reach an agreement on the trellis width. So I'll present what we were proposing and how we adjusted it also. So my wife and I looked at the situation a little further, and we realized there was a view through our tree. So we came up with something pretty simple to address that. So this is what it looked like before. You can kind of see through the tree. There's their middle window, and we just put up like some ribbon streamers so you can't see through the tree anymore. And then with respect to the main concern, as far as I was aware, we've basically put up these two posts here. You can kind of see them there, hopefully. That's kind of the height there. And then there's another one right about here. You can see my mouse, hopefully. I've made it easier in the after shot. So there's like a little rectangle for the proposed trellis area. So you can see it completely covers the area that we would be able to see down into their backyard. We might be able to.
And how wide is that?
It's 56 inches in height and it's approximately 8 feet in width. I didn't measure it before I came.
Okay.
But the proposed, the neighbor wanted it to go all the way over here. And like, as you can see, the trees here, so we can't really see anything in their yard.
Is that a tree that loses its leaves in the fall?
It does. It got no leaves through winter, but it's 3 months of the year. Here's just a video kind of summarizing it coming out of our bedroom. You can see straight away that there is no view. We come to the edge here. If you can see down there, there's a black line. That's the edge of the deck. You can't really see anything down there. Skip forward just a little bit. And coming across here, like there's the post. So you can't see anything if there's a trellis here. And all the way across, you can kind of see the post there. There's nothing that you could see really. That's all I really have to present. We think that this is going to address like 95% of the views into their backyard. And while I admit that in the winter, there may be some additional views into their backyard, we think that is not really cause for concern given A, we're not really going to be on the deck in the winter, and B, like it's only a small percentage of the year. So hopefully this kind of addresses our neighbors' concerns. We did add in that additional privacy screening in the tree to try and address some of the additional concerns that we weren't aware of. But I'm interested to hear what others think.
So it's 56 inches above the existing fence.
Yeah.
So the total height is what? The fence is 6 feet?
It's not 6 feet. It's probably 5 feet, I guess.
5 feet.
Maybe.
Okay, so you're doubling the height of the fence right there.
Just in that spot, yeah.
So it's 10 feet almost.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I wasn't here the first time. Is the deck you're proposing on the roof the same size as the deck that was existing that you tore out?
It's slightly smaller. Okay. Yeah, the previous deck was right up against the edge of the roof. The new one will be up against the edge of the house, or the upper story, I should say.
All right. Anybody else have questions? Anybody? All right, so we have some people on the line. So who would like to be heard about the 2 Highland Boulevard?
Hi, I'm sorry, your voice was a little muffled. Did you want me to go ahead and present our perspective?
Sure. Yeah, if you're here on 2 Highland, do I remember you from last one?
Okay, great. Awesome. All right, just gonna start with the quick overview for any new members. I think Kyle or Kane, sorry, already covered a lot of the content. They are situated directly behind us. This is the area that's affected. So it includes our backyard, the play area outside, as well as the dining area and the the dining kitchen, bathroom, son's bedroom, all of those areas are visible, and including the backyard. And then just starting with a high-level summary of what I'm going to present. As Kane already mentioned, main thing was that we tried to find a compromise on the screen that would be put up. Last time we met, the core premise of that was that there were no views from the ground floor, and then therefore a screen would be feasible. But when we actually met up, that fundamental premise was no longer true for them. And they said that they had a view from the dining room, which would actually prevent them from agreeing to put up to a size of the screen that would be acceptable to us. And I'll get into more details of that. I will also show that the deck that was actually put up was not a permitted construction. So it raises a question of, we would raise the question of, the entire premise of the pre-existing view. And, we will go over that and discuss that a little bit. We're still willing to compromise, and then I'll kind of lay out what our proposed compromise would be. So kind of looking at the view from our kitchen and providing an overview of the areas that are visible, the fence that our neighbor is proposing, and the fence that we are proposing. The red line on the top is the length of their roof area, which would have the new deck. As was already mentioned, there is a tree which provides some, but springtime when this photo was taken is probably like the peak that the quantity of the foliage would have. It generally loses foliage throughout the year, and between December through March, it loses most, if not all, of the foliage that is visible in any of the pictures shown so far. The yellow line, and so that's just demarking that the foliage that we see on the top would mostly be gone. The yellow line is what our neighbors have proposed. The green line, a standard fence post is 8x6. And so, that's what they are roughly proposing, one fence width of about 8 feet, if I measure from pole to pole, and we're basically asking for double of that, based on the views. Now, as he already showed, they are proposing putting up like a hanging lantern or something, and that would not be acceptable to us as it's not a permanent screen. And so at some point, if they decide to take it out, we would have no recourse, or if it falls off or whatever. So we would, just like their construction is a permanent construction, we would want a permanent screen that would be, on the building records and cannot be removed without our permission. So we would not agree to any solution that would be like a temporary screen that is just put up by them. And the views, looking into our yard, when the leaves are not there, you can see quite a bit. I have not put up the picture, but when you step out of the door, you can see most of the kitchen, as well as the dining, or the backyard, as well as the inside of the house in the kitchen and the dining area. And again, kind of to reiterate the discussion we had, they wanted us to put up a screen that would be just this length of this yellow, and we wanted something, we were willing to go, not any longer than the green line that's shown. And the primary concern that they brought up about that was that it would block their view from the dining room on the first floor, which in the last meeting they had said would not be a problem. The height, as we measured it, it was 6 feet fence, and then 6 feet approximately on top, for a total of 12 feet, is what, we got a plastic pole and measured it out, and the poles that they had attached were a little shorter, but on the height we had proposed around 12 feet. And at that time, at our conversation, that was possibly acceptable to them, but they were not interested in expanding the width of the screen at all. And so 4 months is a decent amount of time. And even when even in the rest of the year, when you step out of the door, you're still able to, see all the areas that we're concerned about. So this is not a compromise that we could agree on as proposed by them. Secondly, just kind of diving into the permit history of the roof deck, because that's at the crux of the issue as well. The roof deck was built without permit between the sales history of November 2006, when this picture was taken from the sales listing, showing the Juilliard balcony outside, and then showing a view of the roof at the time, and there is no deck visible in that area. When we look at the permitting history for the building, just to kind of orient you, I'm looking at the Contra Costa permit website. I have entered 1980 through 2024, which is the maximum history available.
And then can I just pause for a second, because this is actually not relevant to this project right now, because like he is going to get a permit in this situation. So the fact that it wasn't permitted before doesn't really matter, because he's going for the permit this time. So like, if you're thinking that this is an argument whether he's entitled to the view because he had it before, like what we're dealing with today is that it's primarily the encroachment on your privacy. That's what we have to address in this, because that's the concern you're bringing to us as a group.
Right, because if the project was built without a permit before, our job is to treat it as if it were a new construction. And I think that's, we're treating it that way.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it just has been mentioned multiple times that it's a pre-existing view. So is that relevant to that?
If I can just finish, please. It doesn't matter whether it was permitted before or not. As Ben has said, the effect on your privacy is the main concern. And if we decide to approve or deny it, it's not going to have any basis in whether or not the roof deck that existed was permitted at some point in the past. So anyway, we appreciate the effort that you've made to substantiate your position that it was not permitted, and I think that we're willing to proceed with that as the state of the evidence, unless we hear something differently.
Yeah, my only thought was it was just mentioned as being pre-existing numerous times. So, if the fact, like if the fact that it was not permitted is relevant in terms of what is pre-existing or not, is this a brand new permit or is a reconstruction of an existing, deck? But
appreciate it. Yep.
And so again, like our thought process is still that, if what we had discussed in the last meeting is an acceptable solution, to our neighbors, then that is something that we are still willing to consider, which is sort of blocking it, providing that 16-foot width and approximately 12 feet height screen on top of, or however it gets implemented, but on the screen to protect our privacy, both in the outdoor as well as the indoor areas of our house.
All right, does anybody have questions? No. I have a question. What are you willing to do in order to protect your own privacy? I see that you have a planting area at the back of your property. Have you thought about putting a tree or a fast growing bush in the places where you feel that your privacy is being impinged upon most? Are you willing to work with the applicant to plant something on your fence, to do something like that, as opposed to building a 12-foot high screen that just goes all the way across the back? Are you going to feel comfortable with basically looking at a 12-foot wall as opposed to your neighbor's house? That's my question.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we would be open to like a not 100% wall, but like a crisscross screen, or like, you know, which allows air to flow through. I don't know how long. I mean, I think we were not sure about whether, like, okay, if we do the planting, are we allowed to do that planting? And then if the planting grows out of control or whatever, and it blocks their screen, you know, or their view, like, you know, is that even an option to us? You know, let's say we grow bamboo, you know, for the width of 16 feet, like, let's say by next year it grows up to, you know, that 12 feet height or something, right? Or maybe taller. I mean, you know, at that point we may or may not have as much control over how high it grows. So with a trim, sure, we can trim it. Certainly, we can agree to trimming it, but you know, again, like, that's something that, let me just put it as a question. Is that something that we can do? Can we grow like a fast growing tree that would block their, I mean, because their concern is about the view being blocked, right?
Yeah, I can only speak from my experience, and when the neighbors behind me who are also up the hill, and who also created this feeling of a loss of privacy in my own property. Basically, we worked it out so that we planted a couple of trees on our side that are actually evergreen. They're not pine trees, but they don't lose their leaves. They planted a very large magnolia tree on their side of the fence, and we lived happily ever after, mostly. So yeah, I mean, I'm just saying that there are options available other than having this fence, and still have the opportunity to have your privacy reasonably protected. So I just didn't know if you were you know, that sort of potential solution.
I think we're open to any
address
solution. Sorry, Ken.
Great question, Mr. Patel, about can you do that? We deal with this all the time in the community of Kensington. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on where you stand on this issue, when you grow a tree on your property, no neighbor, no one else anywhere can force you to cut or trim your tree based on the view they have or have lost.
So I think
Okay.
my understanding from Kane is that you didn't want to extend the width of the trellis or screen because you do currently have views from your dining room towards the city or the bay, right?
Yeah.
And so by growing something that would actually also impact your view of the city or the bay.
I wouldn't be particularly happy with that. No.
So I think that, like, you know, the big thing is that you're trying to figure out, is there a way for you guys to compromise on what provides privacy to the Patels and allows you to maintain the views that you have? And the short answer is basically there's no perfect solution here. There's not a way for both sides to get exactly what they want. And so it's like, is there a way for somebody to, on either side, sacrifice something that they want to keep? Because like the best case scenario here is that both sides end up a little pissed off, but willing to tolerate it, right?
And from our point of view, putting up a trellis is a compromise in general. Like, we feel like we're putting up something that is going to limit the light coming into our backyard. It's going to slightly impinge on our views. It's not blocking the whole thing, but it's actually addressing most of the view concerns for the neighbor. So from our point of view, we actually think this is a compromise, a decent compromise. Whereas I think what KMAC is proposing is the other end of the spectrum, where we're fully covering the width of our fence here. Mm-hmm. So from our point of view, this is the compromise.
Gotcha. And then from the Patel Jostri perspective, like, are you unwilling to move forward unless your privacy is perfectly protected, or are you willing to accept the compromise? I understand it's not perfect. There are ways for views to come into your home, but like the bulk of the concern has been addressed by the proposed compromise. Are you still unwilling to accept it unless it's a perfect block of and maintenance of your privacy?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Aditi, you're on. I think they can hear you.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say, I guess we don't feel like the current solution is actually addressing enough of our concern. I don't think it needs to be a perfect solution, but I think we're sort of still a bit on the other end of the spectrum where we don't feel like it's enough.
So what?
Yeah,
So
it leaves significant gaps in our coverage from our perspective. So and you know, from our, like, we're not even talking about the other areas at all, and we are leaving some of the areas open. We're just trying to block the views, and it's also uncomfortable for us. Like, it's not just them looking down, but when we look up and it feels like, okay, we can see all those people standing there looking, like walking around or facing us, whether they're, I mean, I don't know if their eyes are looking at us or not, but it's just like when we walk out of our bathroom or go to the kitchen, we have to be very conscious of, like, hey, are we dressed properly? Because somebody could be looking down at us any second. And that's just been a really uncomfortable experience for us since this conversation has started, and it's hard to put out of our minds. You know, our child, you know, my wife, myself, all of us feel quite uncomfortable with that. And so, you know, we would not be able to accept that just a 8 feet screen as has been proposed.
May I ask a question? Okay.
Sure.
Can I try to verify your exact concern? So is your concern specifically of the views that you would have from the deck through the tree in the winter during the period where there are no leaves? Is that specifically what you're concerned about?
I don't think we can parse it that way, right? Like, I mean, I think it has to be looked at as a whole year, right? So sure, it's winter. Mm-hmm.
I understand your argument. Yeah, if you could address your comments to the board and don't talk over each other, that would be great. So basically, you're trying to ask if it's the parts that would be transparent when the leaves are off the tree, right? Is that the part that's sticking? Because you've already agreed to the part of the barrier, but we're trying to narrow it down to say what are our points of disagreement. So if, for example, Mr. Barkley decided to go ahead and say, we'll give you everything you want, hypothetically, and you want a 5 or 4 foot high, 16-foot wide barrier that blocks the view from end to end of the deck. Is that Ms. Bertel, is that correct?
It doesn't fully, but that would be that, like, when we set, it doesn't fully block it. So there's 2 areas. One is when you come out the door, and then second is the rest of the, you know, once you get past the tree and the rest of it, right? So there's 2 areas that have a view. It's not just, so throughout the year, those 2 areas definitely have a view. And the screen that we're proposing doesn't actually block everything. It just blocks a part of the view. But, you know, again, we didn't want to, like, keep dragging this out, and like, you know, we wanted to find a solution. So when we brought out like plastic poles, and we put up like a plastic film across it, and then, you know, we looked at it from our kitchen, and they allowed us to, and we went up to their roof and looked down, and what was visible, what was not visible. And so some of the parts were still visible, but at least if most of it was covered, then we would be okay with that.
Are you willing to plant something on your side of the fence in order to protect your privacy?
I mean, we would have to look into that and how quickly it would grow and all of that. You know, that would obviously represent a cost for us. And so, you know, if we have no option, then yes, that's what we would have to do. But, you know, because we do want to protect our privacy. But, you know, I would ask that, I mean,
I guess just to pipe in
it's hard for
here.
me to say. It's hard for me to say what you know, what else I can say besides what the solution you proposed.
Okay.
I don't think that I don't want us as a group to kind of start spitballing ideas for you guys. You know, like, I think that, Kane, you basically said, we're done what we're willing to do, and you want us to consider the project based on what you're willing to propose, right? I think that, I mean, from your family's perspective, if there's something short of where you have an impasse that you're willing to propose at this time, then that's fine. Other than that, we have to consider the project as proposed with the compromise that Ken has done. So, like, if you're saying all you're willing to accept is the the 18-foot wide screen, you know, like then we have that, we'll lie with that in terms of how we're making our decision. If you're saying, if you have say, actually I'm willing to accept whatever 12 feet and we can consider that before we consider it, that's an option too. But other than that,
yeah, I think something, well, okay, yeah. So along that point, you know, we like maybe it was like 12 to 14, maybe not a 16-foot, you know, like somewhere a little bit more than 8-foot just doesn't cover anything at all, basically, is our perspective. We literally put up a film screen with 2 plastic poles and looked at it and hardly covers anything. So, you know, I think if you said, okay, 12 feet, then, you know, that would be a start. And then we can grow something to cover the rest over time. If it feels uncomfortable, and maybe we don't, you know, and we just leave it as it is. And maybe that's something that, you know, sure, I think, you know, if that has to be a compromise, then I would put forth that, okay, let's start with 12 feet, you know, let them do their construction. And if we feel the need, then we'll plan something closer and grow that out over time. And if not, then we then we would grow it sooner, I guess.
May I make a comment? I think Hemang, you just made the statement that 8 feet really doesn't cover much of it, but I think like just to illustrate what we're shielding here, like it's completely covering the vast majority of the view we have into your property. The tree views that we may have in the winter are still going to be covered with branches here and there to the point where we're probably not even going to notice anything that's down there, right? Like this is the one area where you are going to be able to see people standing on the deck as you're so concerned about. So we think this is actually covering the vast majority of the views. I think it's pretty obvious. And I think you also mentioned that we have a view through the tree as soon as you get out onto the deck. And that's just not true either. Like, as you can see in the video, you're standing out here, now you're outside. There's no view there. There's a big ass trunk there blocking any view that we have into your property. It's only when you go to this very specific corner that you have a view here. So I just think that it's a reasonable compromise what we're proposing. I don't think that it's unreasonable at all. And I think 12 feet is actually not going to get you much more than 8 feet.
Can you go back to the 8-foot picture? And we can allow Mr. or Ms. Patel to show us what their concern is on the 8-foot picture?
Well, that's their kitchen window, kitchen door. And if you go over that same gap between the 2 trees, it shows there's another window that's visible.
I mean, I can show our view from the we can show our picture, which shows the concerns, right? So like, I mean, this picture obviously like doesn't show what our concern is. So if I can show my picture, then we can talk about that. So when you actually come out from here, you can see both all of these areas are actually visible when you first come out from that. And 4 months of the year, it's completely like there's no leaves there at all. So there's no privacy there whatsoever for all of this area, as well as our backyard, you know, because we have like seating areas in the backyard. It's just like, it's really uncomfortable when like people are looking over you or you know, our kids are playing or whatever outside as well. So these are the areas that are visible, you know, from this deck. And you know, most of the leaves are gone. And so, you know, and I don't have the picture that we, I mean, from their side, but, you know, like when I actually went there and stood there, I can see all of this. I can see my kitchen. I can see this door. I can see this window. I can see all of this whole area when you first come out.
Hey, I just showed the video that shows when you walk out the door. You can
we plan on get back and forth on this all night, but we understand what the situation is.
Okay. My understanding is your compromise is where you stand right now. So you want us to consider based on
yes, please.
All right. So does anybody on the board have any more questions for the applicant or the neighbors? Formally gaveling that. All right, so now well, we would close the discussion and have a talk amongst ourselves here on the record. All right. So Dave, we've worked in Kensington for decades. What's your opinion of this situation?
I think that's what's been discussed here about planting some green on his side and maybe on the other side as well. Is a very good idea. I think the 8-foot screen is sufficient. It looks like it's 5 feet above the fence, and that makes it a 10-foot wall in the upper property yard and about a 12, 13-foot wall in Mr. Patel's yard for 8 feet. I don't think that the owner of the deck is going to be wanting to look down into the yard much. It's just my personal opinion. And I don't think that the Patels will be looking up at the deck that much, especially if there's a nice green wall against the big fence that they have in the backyard.
Yeah, it seems like the closer you get to the downhill residence, the less height you have to put in a barrier. For example, if it was right next to the deck, it would be 25 feet taller, whatever, from the ground level on up. But if it's lower down, obviously, if you had a 7-foot barrier right outside the kitchen window of the downhill residence, that would be sufficient to screen that from uphill viewing. And so as you get closer and closer to the uphill property, the barrier has to become taller in order to achieve the blockage. Anyway, so do you think that maybe barrier plus green would cover the waterfront, so to speak?
Absolutely.
Okay.
My experience has been that works well.
Have you installed these sorts of things for people?
Yes.
Okay. Dave Peterson, longtime Kensington contractor, with practical experience in fixing these exact problems on behalf of neighbors. And so I think his word should carry a lot of weight with everybody. Unlike mine, just paying attention to me, I'm widely ignored. So, Dolly, what do you think? This is your
I would say the same for me, my opinion, right? I'm not a professional. I want both neighbors to get what they want, and I want them to find the peace in this. Yeah. Specific to this, I have a lot of I think that Patels deserve to have a feeling of privacy in their home, and whether it is accurate according to how we see it or not, I think they deserve to have that feeling that for their comfort level within reason that we can move forwards on the project. So saying that, I don't know enough in this moment to say one way or the other.
No, that's still not the same things. I had a matter of first impression.
Yeah. And I mean, ideal scenario is people do get what they want, but it doesn't always happen in Kensington. I think my feeling is that the proposal that you put forward feels to me like a compromise. It does get enough of the way there with everything that with the screen, with the dangly things, which I know are not permanent, but still, I think at some point we're in Kensington, we're close to each other, we're all on different levels because the hills. It's kind of my neighbor can look into my yard, I can look into my neighbor's yard on the other side. It is something that kind of comes to the territory. I know that thing wasn't permitted, but it has been there for probably 50 years, is my guess. It's only 10.
Yeah, it's not a long time.
I didn't know that.
What, the bedroom door just opens?
This whole
right
balcony deck.
This one, there's a balcony here that's a long time. This was more 10 years.
Okay. But yeah, I just feel like that this is kind of Kensington, and I think that with the additions that are proposed by the applicant, it's become a project that's reasonable. It's not perfect, and, you know, having putting a shrubbery or greenery or something will help on the other side, but I think I'm going to move forward with the project.
All right, then we go.
Yeah, I think that Adam, I've said most of what I said. The first thing I'd like to say is, you know, I want to thank both sides for actually making an effort here, you know, because like, I know it's not easy to kind of put a project on hold and try and get to the right spot wherever you get along. And honestly, even after this, you guys gotta have, like, your neighbors. It's best to find a way to get along after this, right? But yeah, I think that, you know, you guys did some good work here in finding a way to compromise and find a way to kind of protect most of the privacy. I agree with what was said before, where like we'd like people to feel that they have their privacy in their home, but I also feel that like there's limitations to what we can achieve given the topography of the area. And so the fact that you found a way to get a lot of it covered is a really good thing, and hopefully you guys can find a way to kind of, you know, continue to be good neighbors after this point.
What you got?
I mean,
You're a planner, right?
I am a planner.
You're all over this.
I deal with community engagement.
Oh, I saw your.
Listen to neighbors all the time.
I saw your project written up in the Chronicle or something. Congratulations.
I mean, I agree with what everyone has said here today. I mean, it's always challenging, and I know that we can't get perfect. We also live on top of each other in a really, you know, closely built, like 3 feet between houses in some cases. And I think like we have to like accommodate for privacy as part of the code that we're trying to protect here. But we also have to make reasonable accommodations that work for both parties. And I think what the applicant has proposed is reasonable. It's a compromise from what we asked them to go back and come up with a compromise. And you did that. And I think that's, you know, we appreciate that. And I think there are things we can do in our own homes to create more sense of privacy, putting up curtains or blinds or whatever it is at certain parts of the day. I mean, that's my neighbors look directly down into my living room and my dining room and my bedroom. And, you know, we have blinds that come down and go up, and, you know, that's what we do to protect our privacy. But, you know, I think that you did a good job at trying to come to a compromise when you're not going to achieve 100%. So I think we should move forward. I'd like to make a motion to.
I didn't have a chance.
Okay.
You just said no one listens to you anyway.
I'll hold off on that one.
Okay. Well, no, I see what's coming. I think that, you know, if you're willing to put up a huge panel, okay, fantastic. I still think that a green wall is better all the way around it. I don't live there, and it's not my problem. I think that it's hard to balance a neighbor's completely valid and, you know, understandable concerns about privacy. I've had that experience in my own house. You know, I've lived in Kensington now for 23 years almost, and so you know, I sort of know how that goes. I think that the Patels need to shoulder some of the responsibility in order to protect themselves from this feeling of not having enough privacy. Like, we, at our own expense, planted a couple of trees that were strategically located to protect our sense of privacy. I think that it's, you know, going forward, you're going to be neighbors for a long time, we hope. You know, we're glad that everybody lives in Kensington, and we need to figure out how to get along. And so even if it turns out that, you know, you pay a couple $100 for a tree that's kind of tall and it gets planted on the other side of the property line, it's cheaper than having to go to, you know, mediation or litigation or something else like that. Everyone needs to be flexible. If the hanging twirly things are not right, I mean, I think that there's a legitimate point. When the leaves come off the trees, then, you know, the feeling is intensified. So it's not proper to simply dismiss concerns about part of the beauty. I think that also, and I think everyone needs to hear this, I don't think that these kinds of concerns are sufficient to give someone who does not own the property and doesn't have a financial stake in it, a veto power over the right of the property owner to do what is reasonably reasonable with their own property. You know, our lots are small, they're close together, but that doesn't matter. They're very expensive, and you know, we're all trying to raise families here, and it's, you know, we just got to get on with it. So that's my stand. That's my piece. Did everybody get that?
And we listen.
Excellent. First time for me. So, Ruel, you were going to make a motion.
Can I make a motion?
Yes, you may.
All right, I'm going to make a motion to recommend for approval 24-03011 to Highland Boulevard to approve with the compromise. And move this forward.
All right. Can you state succinctly what the compromise that we're going to be considering is?
Compromise is the construction of a trellis, an 8 foot, is that what it is?
8 by 4.
By 56 inches.
56 inches. Well, that's
8 by 56 inch trellis on the existing fence to block, to protect the views between privacy.
all right. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Before we vote on this, are we going to hear a different motion from anybody? Okay. All right. We have a second?
I second.
All right. So with that understanding, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. So this ends our consideration of, we'll notify the county planning department that contingent upon the installation of the barrier as delineated in the first presentation, 56 by 8 feet, 56 inches by, it's 96 inches. And if the Patel family has an objection, they would need to contact the planning department. There is an appeal process where your objections over and above, or even restating everything you said here today and last month, can be heard by the county planning department, where they will consider simply a larger picture than what we have access to. If you're still dissatisfied with their decision, you ultimately have opportunity to be heard by the County Board of Supervisors directly. 40 Anson Way is at that stage, you may recall. As an aside, yeah, and it's coming up on the June meeting of the Board of Supervisors, right? So you have that right to be heard at a higher level, and if you decide to do so, good luck. Good luck to you, Mr. Barkley, and I think that concludes the matter for us.
Okay.
Right.
And for the record, Tony is an abstention.
Abstain. Thank you very much.
For sure.
I motion to adjourn.
I second.
So move to three. You can't move. All those.
Okay, we will now end the recording. Thank you all.
All right, folks. Thank you. Bye.